And we're back with Sketch54. I decided to use this little tiny sketch as a jumping off point. I was messing around the other day with the drum synth sounds in Live 11 and ended up coming up with some slightly interesting results. I realized I should have probably just been recording that whole process, but no matter. So what I've got going on here is a preset switcher. I was trying to think of ways that we could switch between the various rack presets and without a Max for Live patch. I can't find anywhere any API documentation for Live 11, so maybe they're waiting to release that. I have no idea. But anyway, I had figured out a way to, using MIDI and our loopbe sort of MIDI loopback setup. And for those of you who don't know, loopbe, it's a free driver for Windows. OS X has the IAC. That's a built-in sort of MIDI, internal MIDI and audio system. Surprised that Windows doesn't have something like that yet. But then again, Windows has never been super amazing and user-friendly sort of out of the box for musicians and artists. Like, I will say Apple's got that going for it since forever. So we want the out of loopbe internal MIDI set to track and the in set to remote. And so that way we can send signals from clips with MIDI. For example, we've got some notes here, and inside we have some MIDI CC. Right now I've got modulation and breath. And let me just double check on here. It looks like I've got this, the recall selected variation set to note 3, C3, and this, the list scroller set to CC1. Okay, so over here, I have that set to CC2 and note C sharp 3. Okay, so it's just a matter of remembering what does what. And, you know, we can map as many of these, I guess, MIDI notes and MIDI CCs to as many racks as we want. It's just a matter of, you know, to do that, you have to do one note and MIDI CC at a time when you map, because otherwise if you turn on your mapping mode and you've got one of these clips with all the MIDI data flowing out of it through loop back into a remote, you know, the thing that you have selected will just pick up the MIDI. So, you know, if I have this selected and I hit, you know, Control M, you'll see it's trying to link up all these different things all at once. So the easiest way is to just make a dummy clip and just send it, you know, one thing at a time, whether that's a note or some MIDI CC. And you can also turn off the speaker and mute the track so that when you play, you don't get any MIDI looping back, as you can see here. Cool. So it looks like I've got this operator here. I'm playing with the new Redux. I've got an envelope follower. It looks like we've got the rate map from this envelope, and we've got the LFO rate and amount. Okay, so these two are from here. This rate is mapped to that, and the filter res. Okay, so I'm not sure what's controlling the bits here. Maybe it's this. Yeah, this shaper is probably controlling. There we go. Got a lot of rates being controlled. So anyway, some squirrely kind of setup there. And these are the new built-in MIDI, I guess these are audio controller Max for Live effects that are more integrated in Ableton 11, the modulator section. And I noticed that when you collect all and save now, these do not move over into your project. So they are more centrally located to the install of Ableton 11, which is that's just pretty useful. I have had a lot of problems with, you know, patches or convolution impulse response waves getting lost over the years. Ableton does a really good job with file, collect all, and save. But if you forget to do that, sometimes, you know, you open a project up years later to get the stems bounced down for a remix or for whatever reasons, and things are missing, and it is just a pain in the neck. So I do really like that Ableton 11 is integrating a very, very useful and widely used Max for Live patches now. So hopefully we see a lot more of that down the road. So anyway, I'll hit play on that. It sounds like, you know, nothing too special here, just almost industrial sounding type of rhythm. So I wanted to pull in another Max patch that I really love to use. And let's drop this into, I think this is a MIDI effect actually, so we'll drop it in there. And I really like this one because it's got some interesting functionality in that you can hit record and start moving the knob around, and it records your knob movements, and then you can of course map that to anything. And this is an edit that I did where I removed, well, I didn't necessarily remove any functionality. I added some extra functionality that causes this to auto run. And if we turn on, this thing requires the playhead to work. If we turn it off, it should just kind of run on its own. Now, I have not actually tried this in Ableton 11. There we go. So it seems to work okay so far as I can tell. I guess when you switch between these two, you have to sort of hit this green button, which is the play button, and that's more or less pause. And let's map this to our frequency, or I think this works in a slightly weird way in that we have to click on a parameter first and then hit map, if I remember. Yes, okay. And I guess it pauses it at that point. So, and it's nice because we also have, if we open up this draw, hit this draw button, we open up this fun thing where we can, you know, we can do some drawing. And I like that if I hold down shift, I can just make these lines from wherever the last point that I drew. Or I'll click here, hold down shift, and it, you know, so that's kind of convenient. And these numbers control the rate and length. So, and this is pretty self-explanatory. Move it forward, move it backward, do kind of ping pong thing. So anyway, yeah. So we've got this one mapped. I think I definitely want to use that. I also wanted to play around with this LFO sketch. This is a freebie, and as far as I have not actually messed with this, and it, you know, I'm not sure if it's set up for Live 11, but I do know that it's a freebie LFO sketch by Kentaro. I'm trying to think of the let me pull up a window real quick and just get that the name. It's Kentaro, a Japanese builder, Max for Live builder. Let's see here. Kentaro Suzuki, and a lot of his patches are kind of expensive. You know, no offense to him. Obviously, everyone's got to eat. I'm not sure how to work this one. So this one might be, yeah, I don't want to hit that. I think that's just going to pop a window. So let me turn on, maybe click 1 here, double click. Hold down shift, control, okay. Control apparently, and then you can just drag. And okay, so it goes from line to line. That's interesting. And I guess you can map, maybe it's like the X, Y, Z or something. And this is like a limiter of where it moves along. So it's a really smart setup, a smart tool that's free. So I definitely recommend anyone to anyone to snag it. I'll include it in here anyway. So voila, there we go. I guess that it easily resets. I'm curious if, you know, when I load the project back up, if we're gonna have our line saved. So let's hit play, and I want to pull in the classic chorus from our Ableton 10 and below days, and let's get the amount and rate mapped here. We just, yep, so we've got X, Y, and I don't know what T is exactly. We'll have to and we have to do a, yeah, set this to 100%, and I guess this is a kind of offset. Let's set this to rate and get that at 100%. I guess we could draw some smiley faces in there if we wanted to. And maybe these are presets? I'm not really sure what these numbers do. Hold down Shift and double click, and it seems to set something in there. I'm not even sure. Maybe this is it. Like copies the current. Yeah, it's there's probably a manual that needs a good reading. Wow, okay, so you click once and it erases everything. So you have to be careful, like, what you do. Yeah, so these are presets, obviously. Oh, I see. Not, maybe I didn't, you have to save it first. Jeez. That's tricky. So, okay. Let's see. I'm gonna shift, or is it double click? And then single click selects it. Yeah, so it's like double click, I think, adds it. Man, that's oh, okay, no, maybe it is shift. So control and shift click. Yeah, shift click saves it into a slot. And then we can, it's tricky, but you can sort of see this kind of moving in that. So shift click adds the preset. And I guess if we wanted to erase the preset, we would just click in here once, hold down shift. There's maybe a way to empty that, but then, oh, no, I guess you would have to draw something and then hold down shift. Yeah, okay. I think I understand this now. It always takes a minute sometimes to get a thing down. And let's see, we've got a rate here. That's cool. Now let's check out this T. What exactly is? I have no idea what T does per se. There's maybe this doesn't pop a window. This has something to do with T. Let's unmap that. Seems like a little too crazy. So, cool. We have this button here that kind of does the ping pong thing as well. An invert. I guess this kind of goes backwards, maybe? Yeah, okay. It's got all the trappings of very similar in some ways to the auto dial that we're messing with here. Cool. I'm really liking the weird robot sounds I'm getting out of this. It's our classic robot sound sketches. Cool. And so I had this preset switcher. Let's just double check, see what's going on here. I think I had muted this, so we need to. Cool. So this is a good way to select through your presets. And you can see it's just kind of like going down the line, and that is because if we check out over here, and I believe that was modulation 1. I just have it set up to do steps. So we could do it in whatever order. So you can see it jumping now. And then whenever, so this is running on its own time frame with an unlinked loop. And C3, anytime that gets hit, it happens to select whatever the current one that this is on. So because the this length here is different from the CC1 length, we're going to get just different, I guess you could say kind of semi-random generative feel to it. I say semi-random because the length of this loop here and the length of this loop here controlling the preset select node they're still quantized, and you know, at any point on here they could at some point, I don't know, link back up. Obviously if you pull this off of the grid, it can mean that this is not going to link up, because this is such a finite, you know, I'm not even sure what exact length that is, but it could take thousands of loops of this before you get it coming anywhere close to linking up to this again, to where their start points will be more or less at the same spot. So that's something to think about, and that's also why I love unlinked clips, because it does give you a very random and generative feel after your playhead gets, you know, out to a certain point. So very sounds like a very industrial piece here, and I forget what sound this is, but I think this is one of our, I wish it would tell us down here exactly what sample this is. I believe I pulled in a sample, like one of our, interesting, and it looks like this just stopped and we're still getting MIDI notes out, so it makes me want to double check on, yeah, so there is a mute function that happens when you have too many MIDI CCs happening at once, and I've noticed that's a feature, unfortunately a feature, of the free loop BE internal. So if you do a lot of stuff like these curves, you can, you know, get some muting. It like auto mutes it. Part of their incentive to get people to pay, and it's not an expensive piece of software. It's like maybe $10 or something, 15, 20 bucks, I don't know. I just haven't put it on this computer yet. You can get a lot of mileage out of the free one, and you know, as you've noticed, I've definitely been focusing in on free plugins and free software. If only Ableton was free. All right, cool. So I just want to do one quick test here, and I think it's worth doing before we commit to our LFO sketch patch. I want to open up this project again and just see if the state of the sketch patch is brought back up exactly where we left off. This is something that unfortunately I've had to deal with Ableton in the past. Max for Live is sometimes certain things aren't saving properly, and I just have to double check just to make sure. Okay, so let's get back to the fun stuff, whatever that means. All right, so sounds like we have a lot of static, not static like noise, but static as in like the sounds, these timbres are not really changing, which is unfortunately, I think, a problem with when using drum synth type things. When you don't automate, you can hear sounds that are just they don't change much, so therefore they can get a little boring. I am curious when I record this. Okay, so when we change presets, we record any of these knobs, and it looks like the automation overrides the preset switching. As far as I can tell, these aren't being, you know, we're not getting this this thing isn't flipping on, and these aren't going gray. So that's cool that we have that they at least thought that through. I thought I turned that off. So of course that goes gray because well, let's just see now, actually. Okay, so I spoke too soon. No, I think when we turned this off, these things will turn gray because we have our variations overriding whatever automation we recorded. Well, we can still do modulation, and I think it will be fine because modulation works with a different set of rules. So that's why I love it, and if they ever get rid of it, I don't think I'll upgrade to whatever version gets rid of this sweet modulation business. Let's pull this off the grid there. Okay, so you can see our modulation kind of working in counterbalance with preset switches of these knobs. And we'll also add some modulation there and see if we get any I think we could also use probability gate here, as it feels a bit, yeah, samesies a lot. It's too bad they don't have a modulation option for the parameters on these drum synths. All right, let's click that off and just hope that we're not getting any more. So I don't have. I see. That is kind of tough when you change the presets and you have this thing on. It's automatically going to try to record in automation. So you know that could make things a bit tricky when we want to turn this thing on. I mean, we could bypass the issue by turning that off and then turning this on. You know, so it is a matter of just remembering to do that, or we could just manually draw in automations. Which I don't mind doing. I don't mind manually drawing stuff in. In fact, I think for the longest time, that's all I did, how I did it, until I started really learning to leverage this. Wow, really pushing the sampler patch to the limits. Sometimes you got to, and just to see what happens, you got to go to the edge there. And I'm oftentimes surprised at how interesting things can sound when you really push something beyond its normal use case. I have unfortunately had a lot of crash problems with plugins and things doing that, but I also learned so much about what that plugin does specifically, and also about just the mentality of learning to get your feet wet and try out new things. And you know, that's a whole thing. I think when I started out making a lot of music, I was actually really hesitant to do things outside of the box, so to speak. Obviously, in DAW parlance, I guess the box is working inside the box is working in the DAW, but I mean, like, just ideas. I was afraid to try ideas that were weird and unconventional. And it definitely took a while. It took several years of testing the waters in different ways, and I guess maybe getting bored, you know, just having one too many Friday nights where there's nothing going on. I guess being in a dinky, low population, small town where there weren't, you know, very many places to go and hang out, especially being under 21 when I got started experimenting with music and sound. I think it was 18. I mean, messing around, of course, on computers with trackers and things since 13, when I found a 4-track 8-bit tracker, very generic ASCII base, you know, on some billboard screen. That was the start of it, but I don't consider anything I did in high school any substance, real interesting substance. I still have all those mods, and I should probably bust one out at some point and just remix it, you know, do like some really weird, you know, use it as a starting off point. I think that would be funny. I occasionally go and listen to a few of them, and then really quickly where I'm just like, oh, that's so bad, I can't I can't continue further. But it's fun to, you know, go down memory lane. I'm glad I didn't delete all those, that I at least had the luck that they lasted on the floppy disks long enough for me to transfer them to probably a zip disk, and then from there a CD, and then from there one of my solid state hard drives. Times to change. All right, so let's get a gate in there. I really should map a gate to one of my hotkeys, because as you notice, we use this quite a lot. So let's pull audio from the group and then have the group go to the send. I wish I could automate this whole dance. I think I want to drag this one over into here and just keep them all under the same roof, so to speak. Call this Gusto. And cool, so we can drop some effects in there and get some, maybe some follow actions. Not sure yet. I do want to try to play around with the LFO sketch and the auto dial a little bit more. Very, very fun instruments. I'm curious, I think if we map an auto dial to one of these knobs, I'm curious what'll happen. So let's see, maybe the LFO sketch, maybe the auto dial, maybe I can't make up my mind. Let's see. MIDI effects are, and I do like MIDI effects as LFOs if you're going to manipulate instruments, because you can place them right beside the instrument. It's very useful to have the LFOs out in the open, I feel, and next to the effects or instruments you're going to be manipulating. Obviously, we could map this and map it to anything, anywhere in the project, but it's very hard, I found, very difficult to trace back to like where something has been mapped. I wish there was like a little, you know, shift click and it would just take you right to the mapped knob somehow. That would be so useful. So many ideas. All right, so let's map this to our decay. Oh, I forgot, with the auto dial we've got a little bit of a different, so we got to select the knob first and then hit map. And then let's pull these down a little bit. They're set to full blast. I think we'll do ping pong, and then let's just turn on our record and start dragging. Cool. And it's nice because we can see with the decay knob to the right there that the modulation, which is grayed out, is actually still working. Oh, okay, so it stopped recording. I guess I recorded my full length, and you can always open the draw panel and see what you recorded and tweak it. Super useful. I guess there's, you know, some different tools in there. All right. One thing I realized with this, if you hit the X, it doesn't actually close. This thing is still lit up. You actually have to click this button to make the draw window close. So yeah, interesting glitchy sounds coming out of the sampler. And let's play around with another. We've got these effects boxes. I'm going to go ahead and just drag all these in. We got a lot of effects we can bring over at some point. I don't want to overload too much all at once, or at least make sure that the ones I do bring over we do use. Oh, that one's surly. Yeah, that's got some gnarly sound coming out of it. What is going on in there? It's almost sounds like a kind of you know, giant beast like Godzilla in the background. I think a lot of it is the saturator, the way we have the wave shaper on, which gives you all these options. So that's probably a lot to do with all right, let's automate some of that note there, and of course our grain delay -12. Yeah, and this reverb. I think we probably want to put maybe a limiter will help bring down some of the ruckus. It sounds like it's probably the saturator, but it also sounds like it's really pushing over the limits. So let's try a limiter in there and just drop that into this. And this is all set up in a container, so the whole thing shuts off and we save some cycles when this thing is off. It's what I call smart rack building. Alright, let's get this tempo adjusted. As much as I love a good 120, and that really syncs, you know, with the clock on the wall, and a lot of things sync with 120 really easy. It's kind of boring sometimes. Yeah, maybe not so loud. That thing really does kind of it's got a lot of surliness to it. I see. So I guess when we solo things out, if we have them routed, that's good to note. So we just have to hold down Control and select. Okay, so this is the one I was hearing that needed some adjustments. Just pull this down really quick. Okay, I just wanted to make sure that nothing was, no sounds were existing outside of this group being looped through our gate here. There's one thing I have noticed. Perhaps it seems like the CPU meter in Ableton 11 runs a little higher than before. I haven't actually done definitive tests. That reminds me. I need to write that down. I'm gonna write that down right now. I always keep a little booklet of you know, ideas. There's like a section of ideas for future sketches, a section of stupid song title name or album title name ideas, and things to do, you know, R&D type things like, see, do we have as much, you know, CPU headroom in Ableton 11 as we do in 10? Okay, enough of that nerdy business. Let's try let's put some delay weirdo on here. I'm not sure what. This is maybe just going to yeah, smear things out a little bit too much. And at this point, usually when you drop an effects in like that, and it transforms the sound so greatly, you know, mixing the instrument down into a wave file or putting it in a looper and kind of getting rid of, you know, the cycles that it all that uses, and then just sending the wave file through the effects makes so much more sense. Unless you want to go back to like a non-affected version, of course. So many strategies for working smarter, not harder. So I think I want to set this effects up to do something a little different, in that I want to put a, just summon my utility. Oh, and I see we've already got one here. I think I want to automate this, or let's go ahead and modulate it so that it only comes on every now and then. We'll unlink that, we'll make it a little bit longer. So this way we only get audio coming through our effects every now and then. And I think at this point it makes sense to adjust the curve, the fade of our dry chain to just be dry on all the time. So this dry wet essentially only just turns up the volume of the effects in this case. So therefore our effects box is a little less in your face. Cool. So a little more, and we could also modulate this one too, so we get kind of a dual. We got an effects volume modulating as well as the volume of the signal from here going into the effects box. I like that. Every now and then it just, we get this like monster squeal coming out of there. Yeah, maybe we could do the same thing with this. Alright, let us summon utility. Yeah, if you haven't already explored something like auto hotkey to speed up your process, I highly recommend checking something like that out. Okay, cool. Let's, same as the other effects rack. And let's go ahead and adjust the dry here. Cool. So now we can modulate this or automate that as well. But I think I'll just leave it static there for now. And I am hearing a bit of that spectral time stuff in there. Let's try out some of these different presets. Guess if we want to isolate this layer, we have to control select that and control select the end. Definitely super glitchy. Really wish there was a way we could easily cycle through these presets. The only way I have found, unfortunately, is to have chains, and you would have a multiple series of these effects. You have to set it up by hand, and you just have to go down the line until you get all the presets in there that you want, and then you have to map this lane here to one of the knobs, and you just set the max to be however many chains you've got going on in there. So now we can select through them. Oh, I guess 0 is actually 1 in here. Well, we could easily change that so that we can move all of these, change our map case here to being 1 to 3 instead of 0 to 3. And you can also set the on-offs of these if you really want to like get super efficient about it. You can set the map here, and you basically have to set, you know, 1. I think it's 0 to 1. We'll turn on 1. 1 to 2. Let's just see if that even did anything. Looks like not. So I think the trick is 1. The min has to be higher than the max. It's a strange world we live in, folks. But somehow that does the trick. So you can see this one's on. Okay. I was wrong. It's definitely a tricky thing trying to set this up. Let's see. So here, 2 to 1. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe it's... Yeah, there's a way to do it. I promise you. But obviously, so that, yeah, when you're on 2, only this one is on, you know, or I should say this one. Yeah, it looks like we got it now so that one's off when we're selecting that. So let's see, that's 2 to 2, maybe 2 to 1. I think I maybe already tried that. Yeah, you can see it turning on there. If I hold down shift and get an incremental. Yeah, which is really odd, but now I want to solve this. I want to troubleshoot and I want to solve it. So let's see, 1 to 0, and then 2 to 1. So let's see, 0.01, and I'm copying this in here. Or let's see, I actually want to try 1.1. We'll paste it in here, and the reason why I'm having to do that is because, whoops, that may not work, but we can see. It's because I have a hotkey now that is takes up my my period. So, oh, it looks like I can type it there. Well, that's cool. Let's maybe give that a shot then. See if I can. And then if this doesn't work, I'm going to move on because you know what? Life's too short. And 1.1. Okay, so I stand corrected. Our period isn't being taken up by our hotkey. And it is interesting to note that you could type in these decimal points, and they're still in there. However, it doesn't show that, and I wish it did. But and I've been able to test that using the yeah, going off on a bit of a tangent, but who cares? Who cares? Sometimes you gotta tangent out. Let's see, we've got derive and color, and let's turn this thing off for a second. So with the vinyl distortion, you can hear you get a much different quality the lower down you go. Obviously, if I hold down shift, I can get some increments there, but you can actually type in 0.001, and every now and then we'll hear a click. It is very subtle, or it takes a while, but if you want to have, let's see here. And of course, unless they changed the behavior in, there we go. I saw a click just kind of bounce through there. And we can also type in like 99.6, and we get a slightly different behavior, 99.5, 99.3, 99.4, or maybe 0.01, or 0.015, 0.014, 0.011. So you can see this is much less. 0.014 gives us much more action than 0.011. And if I do 0.099, oops, not the right thing, 0.099. Maybe that didn't do it right. Let's see, 0.0. 2.0099. Oh, I think you get the point. The 0.001 of it. .99 or 99.8, which shows as 100, but it's actually slightly below. 0.002. Yeah, it's a strange world we live in, but just know that you can type decimals in there. It is not something that a lot of people realize, but if you're doing some really interesting, like you know, if you really want to dial certain things in, you've got to be able to type in those decimals. So okay, where were we? Not delay weirdo. We were working on this three-way situation, which I need to type, let's see, instead of 0, we're going to do 0.01. So that means it's always going to be on when this is down all the way. Let's try 0.01 and then 0 here. There we go. Now it's on all the way. It's tricky when mapping the on-offs of things. I do like some of the really glitchy sounds coming out of there. So we want the max to be 0.9 and then 0, I guess. We do want this thing on between 0 and 1. So I guess when we hit 1, maybe actually it needs to go up to 2. So perhaps the thing has changed just a little bit in Ableton 11. Something I'll need to research on my own, I think. Probably build a rack like this and drop it in the racks folder so that you know, we'll all have that to play with later on. Cool, and let's just make sure everything is turned on here. I think this one had been turned off. Let's make sure our dry wets are all the way up. Pretty dramatic effect, honestly. I have to say it's, you know, one of those like use with moderation, or not. But Okay, so let's summon our audio effects rack. We'll set, drop this in the wet and dry. Map this. Let's see, map this one here, and then map that one to here. And I believe we want to turn this down just a bit. Cool. And I think we need to put a little high pass on there because of the sampler and the high rates of things. You know, we're getting a lot of sort of crazy, probably DC offset type stuff. And an easy way to kill DC offset, obviously we've got this DC offset button here. You can also add a high pass, but I also wanted to just kind of pull away some of the bass off of this thing anyway. So it works out. Okay, so let's modulate that. Nice noisy piece. Well, maybe we should do something like this. All right, let's get ourselves a nice odd length here, and then, oh yeah, if I hit record here, we're gonna get a bunch of other things, knobs recording we don't want to have recording. So I'll shut off my preset switcher speaker button to mute that. I definitely need to automate this wet and dry a bit here. So let's go ahead and mute that, and I'll automate. We have this turned up way too loud now that I'm remembering. Whoops. All right, let's see, what do we got going on here? We got some delay weirdo, and this is interesting. It's got a feedback return. Like, I don't remember building that one bit. Now what I'm gonna do is set up a key map. I've got auto hotkey working, so my middle mouse button turns this thing on, and I also want that same thing to mute that so that we don't get the knobs on our racks recording automation while we're recording in here. So a little trick there. Let me pull in this and get these two synced up. All right. Well, I'm realizing we don't have our video today. Well, you know, there's just going to be days where we just got to keep it. Oh, but this will record. Nice. Okay, well, I guess it's easier to, you know, deal with that than a whole bunch of knobs over here getting automations based on whatever preset is being recalled. Okay. These. Well, it looks like our preset switcher track 7, it didn't record automation that time, so perhaps I manually hit that. I don't know what happened there. I guess if I've got it all on video, I can watch back and see the evidence of my fumblings. Ah, it's when I turn it back on. I see. Okay, that makes more sense. Cool. Let's get some of that. And let's pull this one off the grid a little. Classic moves. And let's just hit that. Control delete. We'll remove the automation from it. I'm not sure what the equivalent is on the Mac. Gosh, it's been really a while since I messed with Ableton on a Mac. I used to only use it for live performances until I discovered that with Windows I could actually run more plugins and things without audio dropouts for whatever crazy reasons, and maybe it was just the type of MacBook Pro and Air that I was using. But really, who wants to bring a tower or whatever to a live show? And I'm sure the MacBook Airs now are so much stronger that they can handle that kind of thing, but I also realized too that on Windows there's so many more things I have access to, such as plugins, which I think now seems like a fun, good time to dump in some plugins. I was thinking about it the other day, and I thought, you know what? I should get these sketches to a certain point that when everybody opens them up, they can at least still hear something that sounds, you know, like an interesting jumping off point. And so any plugins you don't have, you know, if they're not playing, then it's all good. You're still going to at least have some fun things to explore and try and experiment with. Hopefully have fun with on your own. But the most original and interesting sounds come from the use of plugins by a lot of different developers, because each developer, I've noticed, is gonna have a special signature, sound signature. They're gonna use their own special algorithms for saturation and EQing and whatever else. And I don't know if you've noticed, but as we've done all these sketches using just built-in Ableton effects and instruments, there's a certain sound that Ableton produces with, you know, whatever filter code and various algorithms for their effects they've decided to use. It is just a certain kind of sound, which to me can sound a little porous, a little digital at times. And, you know, I don't think that's a bad thing. I think that there's so much music made with Ableton now that sound is like almost ubiquitous to a lot of stuff that's come out. And you know, to be honest, most people I don't think are really gonna have the ears to notice these kinds of subtle differences. I use in-ear buds. They put the sound very close to your ear, and I can notice these kinds of subtle differences, I think. And I don't feel like I have amazing ears by any stretch, but I can at least notice sort of like the sort of weird digital, subtle digitalness that a lot of like the distortions that Ableton add. So I like to obviously use a bunch of different, you know, and I don't even have a lot of the plugins on this computer. A good assortment of free and paid for. I've been uber surprised with the crazy stuff that one can do with just free VSTs out there. And the good thing about Windows anyway is that a lot of those really old plugins will still work. If you use something like JBridge, you can get the old 32-bit ones to load in okay. Alright, I wanted to bust out this one we haven't used in a while and put this here. Let's just open her up and see. There we go. Okay, cool. And let's see if it's still working. Sounds like it's still working. All right, cool. I think we have to play with that. granulator is quite a beast. I love it so much, and even though I own the equivalent, the new version, and the old version is not still available, I still for some reason like using the old version. I feel like it's just a little lighter on CPU, and also it still sounds just as good, and nostalgia points, I tell you, that goes a long way. Okay, so let's map that. Let's map that to here, and then map this to here. Just insanity, I tell you. Like, nobody should sound like that. This isn't even music anymore, man. What the hell? Cool. Like this kind of ducking on just a little bit. We could drop in an envelope now that I'm thinking about it. Where would they put those now? There we go. Envelope follower, and just map the follower to the wet and dry instead of. And a LFO instead of. Now this is how you can get real generative. Not a big fan of preset 8. In moderation, of course. We need a random there. And it doesn't let me bring our depth down because although there's 128 preset slots, for most plugins, they're only using like 10 to 20 maybe. Let's get an LFO here. Well, honestly, to save CPU and be efficient, I should be mapping from this one since we have all these map options. Problem is I'm gonna lose this. Like where I'm not gonna remember that I mapped this to that down the road. It's like dry wet to where exactly? I wish there was some easy way. Like I wish you had a readout down here when you hovered over these to tell you exactly where is this mapping to. So, you know, for future reference, it's easiest to just set the LFO right next to the thing you're wanting to map stuff to, so that way you know that this is, you know, LFO mount, LFO rate, and you can see them moving while this is moving. It's just so much easier and cleaner. Awesome. Okay, let's maybe put a little more rate on that. Get a little more, and maybe a little less. I see. The depth down, it just stays at 0.5. So we actually need to pull the depth maybe to 0.25 and the depth up to 50% to get something that's tricky. All right, let's pull our rate down a little. I mean, we could map the rate to something in here if we wanted to get really weird. I don't think it'll be super noticeable, but it's just and maybe we'll make the rate not go down to 0. That way it's always moving forward. You can see it's gonna do some slightly fascinating things. And let's add a little fall. This will put a smooth on the. Yeah, maybe putting this on the rate wasn't a good idea. Let's pull that off. I feel like things got a little too insane. summon a auto pan. It's been turned into a tremolo, and just I'm gonna pull this down to whatever. This will at least sort of limit the frequency of occurrence on some of the sounds of these layers. They're a bit incessant. Alright, let's put some filter jam on this. I do like the saturation. Audio jam, or audio thing, sorry, makes filter jam. This is a freebie. Their other plugins sound really nice. They all have these randomization buttons, which is super fun and useful. They also just released another freebie out that's called Texture, and I like some of the cool resonances this thing can bring to the table. Yeah, we just turned our drum into some kind of like, it sounds like a tribal tom now. It's funny how you can just do slight subtle adjustments to things, and then you get such a dramatic change that then can sort of change the course of a sketch. Alright, what am I looking for? I'm looking for a compressor in here that is being controlled by our, we'll just call this our kick, perk, and let's get some sound from our kick. And let's get some of that side chain going here also. And I think we need to automate this frequency just a bit. Very strange things happening. Okay, so perhaps a reverb will sound good in there. And let's bring in one of our custom. Got all these different options. We've got, let's see, fake verb. It's a very kind of bassy. It looks like our CPU is not happy, but then again, I'm not really sure. Oh wow, we're getting some serious, yeah, a lot of volume, a lot of resonance coming off of this one. I think maybe for now we'll go back to this one. You know, for all intents and sketching purposes, this reverb is all right. It's definitely not my fave, but I also really love Pitch Wheel. Not a freebie, but it does a really good job of inline pitching. Seriously wish that Ableton had an effect anywhere near something like this. There's some extra live options, of course, but let's try this multiply. I know this is a freebie by Akon. Sadly, does not have a random button. Most plugins I found do not have a random button, actually. So I just have to be thankful when some programmer actually does have the forethought and insight to put that in there. Yeah, we need to automate some of these. I do feel, we're lucky we get a modulation on this one too. I noticed that wasn't on some of the others, so I don't know if that's just you know, an oversight, or they just, you know, probably just an oversight. Having done some max building myself, it is very easy to not get everything set up perfectly on a knob. It is a lot of work trying to get it all perfect. And right-clicking on this one, I see we don't have a modulation option, so I guess there's that. Do we get a modulation option on that? No. Okay. What about this? And this? No. That. But for some reason, this one we get a modulation option on. And of course, there's no way to tell that we're even modulating it. At least no feedback, like GUI feedback, visual feedback, I mean. After you work with a DAW to the insane level that I have, because for whatever reasons, and all good reasons, I chose to use Ableton when I built the studio at the video game studio that I work with. And when I built the sound room, I should say, I chose Ableton, and I think I chose it because it does. Max for Life had just come out as integrated in, and that just opens up so many sound design options. And I think I didn't have the foresight back then to actually see some of the crazy serious projects that I would need to do with it. I think I've since, you know, started using Reaper also, but when you work with a DAW 8 hours a day or more, you tend to notice every tiny little nuance, and it's easy to just sort of nitpick. Oh, we got a modulation on this one too. Cool. Come on, Ableton. You can do it. You can do it. Whew. Oh, man. Scaring me there for a second. Awesome. Okay, cool. I think we're getting close. We're getting close on this one. Just try quickly a bit of a mid-range boost on this, or maybe a high shelf. All right, I'll take it. Cool. We're making our own sort of phasery kind of effect here with the EQ. And maybe this would sound cool. Maybe what if the filter jam is put here? Kind of like that a little bit more. What if we put the reverb after that? I like to sort of move things around in a lot of different variations just to get a sense of what different things do what. It's got a very ominous creature marching or stalking through the jungle kind of effect going on. I'm not even sure what this was here for. Maybe accidentally summoned two of them. Okay. So let's save that, and one last for the road. One last thing. I wanted to try this Cthulhu Effects 5. Yeah, now our CPU is really like, nope. That's too much. Let's see what's going on in here. It may not be, we may not need this one. Of course, we can always, the wet dry on this is a bit glitchy. You don't say. Sadly, no wet dry knob on this guy. Let's fix that. Okay, cool. Well, I guess still some notes left over from the generative class. I think that's where these Cthulhus were. Oh no, these were made for the... Yeah, this might be too much Cthulhu. Yeah, these were made for the original tutorial sketches I did ages ago. Let's try this before Cthulhu Effects 4. Let's try this on the kick. Doesn't hurt to just move something around and try it out on a lot of different things. Alright, so maybe for now we don't need this. I'm definitely still hearing more things I'd like to mess around with. It's always that that struggle between, you know, should we end this? Should we just keep fighting for something here? You know, we could get goofy and add in some silly business here. No thanks. Or I could try the Cthulhu effects on some tones. Why not? Let's try pitching this operator up. We turn the saturator off. Alright, I'll just record some of that then. Almost hearing some kind of vocally sound. That's that always freaks me out whenever whenever I hear that kind of stuff. So this thing, we've got the res up fairly high. So I kind of almost like the weird cheesy spacey thing coming out of it. So I think what I'll do is I'll add a long length modulation and just have it sort of fade in and then fade out. Auto filter. Yes, racks within racks within racks. It can get kind of weird. And let's also drop this wet dry into a rack and do the same thing, but we'll make the loop length a little bit different than the other one. Yeah, this one has this piece, this sketch has a very ominous, you know, mysterious jungle, like cyberpunk, you know, jungle, city jungle kind of I can almost see the image in my head of this dilapidated old city, and you've got these like half cybernetic people kind of wandering through, and everything's overgrown, but there's this extreme future technology that looks like it's just falling apart as it's been abandoned for thousands of years, and then these half robot, half human or humanoid creatures are just all kind of slowly like wandering through there, shining their flashlights, and like it would be a nice anime scene, that's for sure. Cool. It seems like the reverb is the only thing in here that is actually, let me undo that back. Oh, I guess with the I'm assuming with the MIDI changing the rack presets, we're getting a lot of undo stuff being filled up. So that's kind of difficult. It makes it, when you do legitimately want to undo some things, you probably need to like stop the playback so that the presets aren't this MIDI that's changing these presets isn't muddying up our undo a ton. Things to think about for the future. So I think I'll just drop one more. And we won't be complete until we get a little pitch down action. Yeah, this almost has this like fourth world style to it. Which, if you're not familiar with fourth world music, it's almost like a spin-off of this sort of 80s sampler-based new age / experimental, put together, very sort of eclectic, spacey. John Hassel is one artist who is really good at it. He's done some really good works. He uses a lot of like interesting loops and melodies, and kind of almost borderline cheesy, but there's something about it that's very nostalgic. And all right, let's drop a velocity here and throw a little random in there. I'll only turn that on every now and then. Cool. All right, I think I'm ready to finally give up the fight. Could go on like this forever, truly. But hey, at least we got to experiment with some things. Not all of them worked. Still really wanting to perfect this, wherever it is. Our big, preset switcher. Yeah, I think maybe it was this thing. I don't know. But maybe I'll work on that in the downtime and bring that in to one of the next sketches. Make like a template using it so that we can easily bust it out down the road. I think it'll be worth having. I built one before, but it's not, of course, at hand. So, at any rate, hope you've enjoyed this and this trip down some distant future past cyberpunk cityscape with like strange mutated half robot, half animal creatures stalking us. Until next time, keep it weird.